All right, welcome everyone. In this build series, we are tackling a Flowbench, and a Flowbench is basically a device to measure flow, as it kind of the name implies, and it's using a set of vacuum motors to generate airflow and static pressure. And you can take a cylinder head, for example, a stock one, and port it out, increase the ease of airflow getting through it, and actually measure that performance improvement on this Flowbench. Inside this bench, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of details. And so this build series does discuss a lot of those details. It has a lot of footage of how things went together. Now, this Flowbench you see here, this was derived from a plan purchased from PTS and then modified to suit the client's needs. But that was the heart of all this work, was that plan. So stay tuned and enjoy the build. All right, so we're out here in the shop after getting all the pieces of MDF cut to rough size, which most of it you can see kind of behind me over here on the right. Lots of big, heavy components. Used 4 sheets of MDF in total. Actually 4.5. I lied. 4.5 sheets in total. Luckily, I bought an extra half sheet when I was at the store because I needed it. And the reason I needed it is because I was laying out all my pieces in terms of kind of rough dimensions and how to get the most out of the sheets of MDF. I forgot 2 components in my layout, so I used that extra half sheet to get that in there. All right, so a little explanation on the selector or slider plate assembly and what the whole intention of that is. There's eventually going to be 4 big holes in this sheet of melamine that's on the bench, and then the matching one that's going to be on top. That gets this piece of 1/4-inch MDF gets sandwiched between those 2, and then there's the plate, the selector plate that's in the middle. And what that has, the selector plate only has 2 holes in it, adjacent to each other, kind of diagonal. And so what you can do is, in one mode of airflow is called let's call it intake. You can pull that selector plate out, flip it over, put it back in, and that actually reverses the airflow in the chamber, turning it into an exhaust. And so after getting that fit, I did need 4 pieces of tape on my project here to get it fitting pretty well. Still a little tight, but I think a little bit of sanding and some wax and it'll slide real nice. So now moving on to some construction after getting that's kind of assembly, that selector plate assembly working. I need to mount a divider on the bottom side of this panel here. And so what I've done is eventually it's going to be vertical like this. But what I've done is I've marked out some lines that indicate a center line, and then I drew 2 lines 3/8 off from that, so 3/4 in total, and that's how wide the MDF is. and I've lined up the MDF with one of my lines here. And I need some alignment aids further down the road, and even now it helps have something that helps align the two panels together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some biscuit slots. And by doing this, by lining up your edges with your reference line here, I can use the biscuit joiner like this to plunge a few holes across here, and then I can flip it over and use that workpiece as my other guide and plunge down. And what that'll do is that'll perfectly align this edge and this edge together when I put it up in its vertical orientation. Hopefully that made sense. So I'm going to do that here, and then I'm going to move on to fixing this or attaching this to the lower part of the selector assembly, and then I'm going to move on to the top, which is actually the panel where the blower motors mount. Do basically the same thing, but it's in a different orientation. It runs side to side instead of front to back. So here we go. All right, so the Flowbench is coming together nicely. It's finally in its mostly constructed state, I'd say. For a lot of the build, I had it on its side as I was working on it, but now it's upright. It's got both sides on it. The back has been cut to size. It just hasn't been fit on yet because I have to cut some more blocking and reinforcement here. I'm not a big fan of putting screws just directly into the edge of the MDF, so I'm going to try to add this blocking to all the seams. Not only does it give me a good place to put a screw, but when you add glue to both sides, it really strengthens up that corner quite a bit. So I'm going to try to do that wherever I can. And now moving on to the front. So this is the front here. Oh, Jesus. MDF, huh? Wow. So it isn't short, even though it may look it. On this top front corner, it will be like the control panel. And it's actually going to have a 45-degree panel here, so I have to cut all the corners off these, and then this will be cut a little bit shorter, and then the top will go, well, on top of course, but the edge of that will have a 45-degree angle, so it all kind of lines up nicely. So I'm going to move on to this now and get this cut to size, and then we'll keep continuing on with the build. All right, so the Flowbench cabinet is, I don't know, let's say 90-ish, 95% of it constructed. There's been added a lot of blocking to ensure all those corner joints are nice and tight. I haven't put the top on yet, nor this front console part, because I haven't cut the 45 in the front for the console to sit on. And since I want that to be a nice continuous 45-degree angle, the tops will come later as well, but that will be kind of towards the end of the build. I'm turning my attention now to this big opening on the side here. This is the right-hand side of the cabinet, and this is for an access door to get in to help service the motors if needed and run wiring and things like that. And so it needs to be a removable panel, but it also needs to be well sealed for airflow. So some ideas on the forum, the PTS forum, is to use a bulb seal that I have here. I couldn't find the exact one referenced in the forum, but I got one that's pretty similar. And what you can do is you can take a piece of poplar here, or whatever piece of hardwood, probably even MDF if you really wanted to, and kind of capture that seal, if you will, behind it and up against the cabinet. And you can cut a little profile, maybe cut a little recess in the front for the seal, to give the seal a place to kind of extrude into as you put that panel on, but it creates a really nice airtight seal. And then from there, you have to come up with some way to constrain the panel to the box. And so I think I'm going to use some additional blocks and some threaded inserts to do that. But yeah, I'm going to start playing with the profiles on this board here and just see what works best for constraining the seal, and then for allowing like I said, the seal to extrude in a little bit and still provide a nice airtight seal. So here we go, time to play around and experiment.
So this is where we're going to have to end video 1. If you want to ensure you don't miss the next video in this series, please subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.